Hey everyone, these stories are very dark. They mention several different types of abuse and domestic violence. If you don't want to hear stories like that, go ahead and skip this one and listen to something else. If you're all ready, let's go ahead and get started. And remember to always stay hungry. Trigger warning for sexual abuse, child abuse, and grooming. It all started in the year of 2017. I'll be changing names in the story for privacy reasons. For some context, I'm a female, and at the time of the story, I was 16. I met the father of my 2 children through some mutual friends. Let's call him S. S was 26 when I met him, and he was a drug addict and just a lowlife of a person. I wish I could say that I knew better than to date a 26-year-old when I was 16, or that my family or anyone for that matter had intervened. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. I spent 5 years with S. 5 years of manipulation and abuse, and I ended up pregnant with our first child in 2018 when I was 17 and pregnant again in 2019 with our second. When I had my first son, I had quit my job and became even more dependent on S. Life was hard for me, and I thought S was all I had. S had wrecked my car and refused to fix it, leaving me stranded in the middle of the country with 2 children alone for over a year. And the year of 2022, around November, I had finally had enough. I came home to S passed out in a recliner with a needle in his hand. Something inside me snapped and I wanted out. I got a job working weekends at a Dollar General, and I told S that he needed to find a new place to live. Surprisingly, he had seemed fine with it, and he said he would start looking. Fast forward to January, and I had met a man and started going on dates with him. When we became official, I had told S to pack up his things and leave, that I gave him plenty of time to leave and I was tired of him dragging his feet. S snapped and then cornered me in the bathroom, taking my keys and my phone and screaming at me. He then pushed me into the bathroom mirror and shattered it all while our 2 children watched. Finally deciding that he had done enough, he then stormed out and left. I finally thought that the worst of it was over and that I had finally escaped this nightmare, but that wasn't the case. On February 14th, I had put on social media that I was in a relationship with a man that I'd started seeing in January. This is where things took a turn for the worst. Coming home from work, I had made dinner and put my children to bed, and then laid down to try and get some rest before my next work day. I was awoken at 2 a.m. to the feeling of someone sitting on top of me, straddling my legs and holding my wrist. I went into a panic, swinging my arms and kicking my feet. When I opened my eyes, I saw Les. He had such dark, empty eyes, a face contoured like a monster. I screamed, "Get off of me! What are you doing?" He then grabbed me by my throat, saying, "You're gonna take it whether you want to or not, bitch." He grabbed my hands and tried to put a pair of cheaply made handcuffs on them, the whole time me screaming, "Stop! Stop! I don't want this! Please stop!" In my head, I thought to myself, no, I can't let this happen. I can't be a victim to him again. I started kicking my feet and swinging my arms. I managed to break the chain in the middle of the cuffs. Once it broke, I then smacked him as hard as I could. Hitting him only made him angrier, and he pulled out a pistol and then put it to my head, then saying, "I'm gonna blow your brains out and then mine, right here, right now. I'll do it." To this day, I'm still not sure what came over me. I guess years of abuse and hatred boiled over me in that moment. I looked him in his eyes and then said, "I hate you, and I always will." Suddenly, he stopped, almost like he flipped a switch and he was done. He then climbed off of me and left our house. After that incident, I went to work the next morning and just pretended like nothing ever happened. I told my then boyfriend, who encouraged me to go to the cops and get a restraining order. The cops granted me a DVP, which stands for Domestic Violence Protection for anyone who doesn't know. It's been over a year now, and I want to share my story. I escaped after 5 years. Please learn from me and don't date anyone over your age when you're a minor. Learn to love yourself enough to leave, and especially if you have children. Reach out and ask for help. I'm now engaged in raising my children with the most loving, understanding, and gentle-handed man God has blessed me with. I haven't told many people this story, but it feels good getting it off my chest. Please know that there's someone out there who will treat you with respect and love for who you are. They're out there. The story happened in 2018 and lasted until 2021. In 2017, I had moved to Charleston, West Virginia to be with someone. I worked a few different jobs, but landed myself in a position with a pizzeria in 2018 as a shift manager. About a month after I started working there, a new guy named Andrew had started working at the place as a delivery driver. We were overall friendly with each other, but I thought it was really shitty the way the general manager threw me onto my first official shift by myself on one of the busiest nights of the week. The delivery driver had stopped to help me when no one else would, which I had greatly appreciated, but at the same time, he had a tendency to lose his shit over the smallest things, some of which I had to report to our general manager. At the beginning of 2019, the boyfriend that I had moved all the way to West Virginia for broke up with me. After being single for about a month, I had noticed that Andrew started to take an interest in me, so we went ahead and started talking more at this time. My job didn't have any formal policies on employees and shift managers dating. They just had to keep things professional while at work. So one night as I was closing, Andrew texted me, and he told me that he forgot to do something, as we're both working at closing shift, and he had left, and I would lock up the store and do the final count of the safe and ensure that the store was completely clean before I left for the night. Well, I had let him back in the store and he kissed me. Pretty soon after that, we had started a relationship, and everything was going good until I had lost my housing after my ex and I broke up. I had moved in with my friend, and there was an issue with the landlord, and the landlord didn't want me staying there, so I had to move. I had vented to Andrew about this, and he took that as me trying to pressure him to let me move in with him. He ended up ghosting me, but then came back and apologized, and I accepted the apology. It was at that point where I had finally found a place to live, and I was going to be moving in. He convinced me not to move in with the person I was going to be living with, and instead he would get me a car and I would move into his place. Well, I moved in and things were great for about a month or two. He started to tell me that I was lazy even though I was working full time and it wasn't enough. So I ended up getting a second job. He kept getting increasingly angry and scared the daylights out of me, sometimes with blind rage that he would really get. He also used to smoke synthetic marijuana. I hated being around it because it would give me migraines, and it got increasingly worse the longer we were together. I think I had made a comment one morning about how he wouldn't be so tired if he hadn't stayed up all night getting high. And well, this sent him into a rage. I was in the bathroom getting ready for work when he came barreling up the stairs. He slams me into the wall in the bathroom and my neck on the towel bar. I had bruises on my arms and on the back of my neck. When I came home from work, he had left me roses and jewelry. He apologized and we left it at that. I thought that was the end of it until his next episode. I got home from work and I was sitting on the bed watching TV, when out of the blue, he took a chair and started smashing the TV with it in a rage, completely unprovoked this time because I hadn't even said anything to him. Then he looked at me and said, "Look what you made me do!" Then he cleaned up the broken TV, apologized to me, and then bought a brand new TV the next day. One night I mentioned how it'd be nice to add a spout to the bathtub because it was just an exposed nipple at that point, so you really couldn't even take a bath. Well, he flipped out on me again, acting as if it was unreasonable for me to want to take a bath after being on my feet all day at 2 different jobs. I told him I was going to sleep in the bedroom because I felt like he needed some space. Well, apparently that was the wrong thing to say, and I went down to the downstairs bedroom. About 20 minutes later, I hear him coming down the stairs. He had lost his shit on me, telling me that I needed to get out of his house, so I started grabbing my stuff and he kicked me. I then fell, smacking my face on the bed frame. Not enough to cause any bruising or marks, but my face hurt. Apparently, I wasn't going fast enough for him, so he decided that it was a good idea for him to call the police. He said that he told me to leave and that I really need to, that I've been living there for 3 months and he didn't want me at his house anymore. He was very drunk at this time, by the way. Well, the police came and they separated us. The officer pulled me outside to talk to me, while the other officer was talking to him. I explained what was going on and how he went off the deep end and he had been drinking a lot. The police officer had asked me if he had physically put his hands on me or done anything, and I was really scared at that point. So I had told the police what happened. Well, here's what the police officer said, which I really regret not listening then and there. "Look, I know how these things end. I don't want to be called to the house because we need to take you out in a bag. Please leave and don't come back. It's for your own safety." When I went back into the house so I could grab some of my stuff because I was going to stay at the hotel for the night to get away from him and make sure that I was safe, he was becoming belligerent with the other police officer, and the police officer looked at him and said she's a legal resident of this house. She's been living here for 3 months. She receives mail here. Her ID has this address on it, and you can't have her trespassed. She has every right to be here, and you'll have to go to court if you don't want her here through the legal eviction process. She's gonna go somewhere else for the night just so you can calm down, but you're not allowed to restrict her access to the place. So I do just that. I got a hotel, and the next day he called me up and seemed very remorseful. I told him that I wouldn't be coming back unless he promised that he would stop smoking synthetic marijuana and to also try and get control of his drinking. He promised that he would go to an outpatient clinic for his alcoholism and that he wouldn't smoke the synthetic marijuana anymore. So I came back. Things were fine for about 5 months. During the time he had ghosted me at the beginning of our relationship, he had changed his phone number to avoid me. So this is very important to note. Well, the pandemic hit and I had to quit the job at the pizzeria because managing 2 jobs was just way too much stress for me at that point. So I was just working 1 job doing mobile phone sales. He had been let go because his driver's license got suspended. He went to the DMV to try and straighten out the issue, and I brought him since the DMV was just right across the street from where I work. I didn't hear from him most of the day. Soon I was off work, and I headed home. Well, when I got home, he had been drinking heavily. He had actually started blaming me for the reason why his driver's license got suspended. His license was suspended because he had a DUI, and he had changed his number so his lawyer couldn't get a hold of him about it, which was somehow my fault. It was also my fault that he had lost his job as a result of his license being suspended. I told him I was once again going to go stay in a hotel because of how erratic he was acting. He told me I needed to just stay away and get the money to move out. I told him this was my final stay, and then he lost his shit. He told me that he knew that I was already planning on leaving to go back home because my mom was pending a cancer diagnosis. I don't know how he knew that though. I'm guessing he went through my phone. But I had already been increasingly concerned after being locked down with him for several months at his erratic and crazy behavior, so I was trying to get out. He proceeded to go outside, and when he came back in, he came back inside with a loaded gun. He held me at gunpoint, and I just grabbed what I could and then ran out the door. He chased me to my car at gunpoint, and I got into my car and drove. I ended up getting a hotel, and once my friend found out I was staying at a hotel, she actually told me to come over, and I had started living with her. Her place was a little too crowded, so I ended up moving in with some coworkers. Over the span of about 6 months, I ignored his messages, as well as his messages for me to come back home, and I was holding my ground on not continuing the relationship. I went completely no contact. It was February 2021 when the massive snowstorm hit the US hard. My roommate and his husband were 2 hours away, and I was by myself. They sent us home early because of how bad the snow started to get. At this point, I had already packed most of my stuff so that I could finally move back home. I had already given a notice to my supervisor that I wanted to transfer my job, and they were working out the details. I got home at around 6 p.m. I went upstairs and watched some TV in the upstairs bedroom that I had. My roommate's bedroom was on the first floor of the townhouse we lived in. We had a Ring camera in the front of the house, but not the back of the house. It was around 9 or 10 p.m., and I realized that I hadn't ate all day. So I got up, and something had told me that I needed to take my phone with me. So I went down the stairs. I didn't turn on the lights because at this point I was well aware of the layout of the house. To explain the layout, the front door is in the living room, and you have to walk through the small dining room into the kitchen from the living room in order to get to the kitchen. And in the back of the house, there's a door that exits into the backyard that leads right into the kitchen. Well, the lights were off as I entered the kitchen. I froze in place as I saw that he was standing in the kitchen. He looked at me, and I looked back at him. He was right near the back door, and the knife block was right near where he was. So I had to contemplate if I was going to try and run past him and impossibly grabbing a knife and stabbing me to death, or if I was going to run through the dining room into the living room and then out the front door. As I was turning to run back the direction I came from, I fell. I tripped over a broom and he then grabbed me by my hair. I felt stinging pain coming from my scalp. He punched me in my face twice. I held down the button on the side of my phone and I called the cops. I told them what had happened and the police sent someone out immediately. The dispatch told me to stay on the phone with her. He was yelling in the background that the police weren't going to come and arrest him, that they were going to arrest me, and I was trying to get past him, but he was blocking my way. The only thing I could think to do at that point was to reach up and then punch him in the face, so I did just that. He then stepped backwards as I punched him in the face because he wasn't expecting it, and I then pushed past him and ran outside. At that point, the street was all lit up with flashing blue lights. My face was swelling, and I had blood coming from my mouth, so the police had me step into the ambulance as they tried to get him out of the house. Well, he then shut off all of the lights in the house and then locked himself in. The police said that they weren't going to go in after him because they didn't feel safe doing so with all the lights off, not knowing if he was armed or not. This really enraged me as he had no business there, and they told me I would have to go somewhere else for the night. They wanted to send me to a woman's shelter for the night. Mind you, in a completely involuntary response, I had peed my pants because I was so scared that I was going to die that night. So I was in pee-soaked pants and I had no change of clothes. I did manage to grab my car keys before I got out of the door along with my purse. Those were at the front door. I then called the friend that I'd stayed with before and told her what happened. The police brought me to her house. She met me outside the house and then immediately hugged me. She didn't even care if she got urine on her because she knew that I needed her in that moment. Her brother was also staying at the house. He ended up coming down the stairs because they were icy and he wanted to help me up the stairs. They had a towel and clean clothes waiting for me. After I showered, I just sat there bawling out my eyes in complete disbelief of everything that happened, and I thought this was truly the end of it. Well, the next morning I woke up to an alert on my phone. My car had a tracker that would let me know if someone bumped into my car or anything happened to my car, and it alerted me that my car was being towed. He had tried to junk my car. Well, luckily the person who picked up my car phoned the police. He thought that this was very suspicious because the car was well kept and my iPad was also inside the car, and he knew that something was really wrong with the situation, so he had called to let them know where he left my car. I ended up having to get a tow truck to pick it up and then bring it to my friends. I eventually got a restraining order on Andrew, and my work expedited my transfer out of state for my safety. They gave me as much time off as I needed before returning to work because they knew that I wouldn't be in any position to work anytime soon, given the circumstances of everything that just happened to me. I'm now back in my home state, and occasionally Andrew will try and call me now that the restraining order has expired. I block his number anytime he tries. I've now moved on with my life, and I'm in a much better place than I was when this happened. I actually reconnected with someone from my past, and I'm in love again. He knows my trauma. We've talked through everything that's happened to me, and he does everything he can to show me that he isn't like my ex. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where the person you're with shows you any sort of violence, get out the very first time it happens. Don't wait. It will not get better. It'll only get worse. Your life is far more important, and if you happen to come across this, Andrew, fuck you. Fuck you for putting me through everything that you did. I wish the absolute worst for you. You don't deserve to have good things wished upon you. My instinct told me that I needed to bring my phone, and had I not, the situation could have been very different. So always trust your instinct. It's there for a reason. Hey everyone, that's about it for today's stories. If you have your own story that you would like to send, you can send it in at southerncannibal.com, or you can email it at southerncannibalstories@gmail.com. I look forward to telling your story. Have a good night or good day, everyone, and remember to always